One Piece is going on hiatus. We're going to talk about when, which is now, and also why, which cannot be answered with the word now. One Piece will be on break for the next 3 weeks and will officially return on April 22nd, meaning that spoilers and such will probably be floating around by April 16th or 17th. It's another big break, but there are reasons, and Oda has given us a fun message. However, I have to say, this is probably one of the most confusing Oda messages we've ever received, and that's primarily because there are at least 3 different translations of it floating around online, all of which are pretty wildly different. One has Oda claiming that he is, quote, excessively worried about his health, and another one strongly implies that this break is being taken because of Akira Toriyama's recent passing, which, in case you're unaware, the creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, did recently pass away, and that is not insignificant to Oda, considering that Toriyama was his idol. But it's also only a small part of the overall reason, and not what a lot of people right now are spreading on the internet. So the translation that we're going to use comes from the Library of Ohara, who is always my go-to source for accuracy when an official English translation is not available. So let's begin with Oda's message. Break time! Indeed. I'm indulging in a break for the next 3 Jump issues. Recently, after the passing of Toriyama-sensei, I feel people may be worrying about my health more. But to reassure you, I'm not sick right now or anything. It's just that I wanted to give myself some time to rest. Think of it as trying to focus on self-maintenance. And we'll get to the rest of the message in a bit, but I do think it's important to linger on this. As you can see, Oda doesn't say that he is excessively worried about his own health. He actually says that it's the fans that are probably worried due to the death of Toriyama-sensei, but he does mention that he wants to give himself some time to rest and have some self-maintenance. However, I personally think that there is a little bit more to worry about here. To be clear, this is not some sort of conspiracy theory. I'm not suggesting that Oda has had to suddenly take a break for some sort of dire medical condition that needs immediate attention. If that were the case, I think he'd be quite open with us, like he was about the eye surgery last year to tackle his astigmatism. I don't think there's an immediate issue. However, there is a however, because this problem is much more long-term and it's a result of his profession. So prepare yourselves, because I'm about to hit you with a horrifying fact. Japan has one of the highest life expectancies in the world. Currently, the only 2 countries that beat Japan are Hong Kong and Macau, and the average life expectancy of a Japanese man sits at an incredible 84.5 years old. However, this month, which at the time of recording is March 2024, a study was released on the manga industry, which found that the average lifespan of a male manga artist was only 62 years old. This data was gathered from information concerning 219 manga artists. And very importantly, the only data that was used was from artists who had passed away from natural causes. I think that's incredibly relevant to point out because the manga industry is a stressful industry, and it can lead to, how shall we say, non-natural self-inflicted exits. But none of that is included in this data, so that is not skewing it. Which is horrifying, because if you are a male manga artist in Japan, then you automatically have a reduced life expectancy of 22.5 years, meaning that it is statistically less dangerous to take up a career in the US military than it is to become a manga artist in Japan. The average lifespan of male US veterans is 68, I think. So drawing manga is significantly more dangerous to your health than the results of active military duty. That is absolutely insane. And bear in mind that Eiichiro Oda is 49 years old, which still sounds incredibly young, and by most standards, especially Japanese standards, it should be. In theory, Oda should be just over halfway into his life. However, by his profession standards, Oda is statistically estimated to have completed just over 75% of his life. On average, he has 15 years left to live. So at the age of 49, he's looking into the future, and he's seeing that that path forward is startlingly short. And I honestly believe that this is a big factor in this break. Not necessarily the release of this specific study, but because it's well known that mangaka just somehow have this tendency to die comparatively young. And when Oda was young himself, that probably didn't seem like a big deal. But now that he's starting to seriously approach that age, he needs to make some changes. And luckily, he very much has the luxury of doing so. Being the creator of the highest selling manga of all time means that he could slow production down, and Shueisha would just have to sit there and accept it, because he's their golden ticket. But Oda works consistently as hard as he can because he's always thinking of the readers first. And that's what he's been doing for the last almost 27 years now. So it's quite refreshing and even relieving to see a message where Oda is actually thinking about himself for a change. It's certainly unusual, and I was actually quite shocked to read it. And something else that might be a bit of a wake-up call is that Eiichiro Oda undeniably works a lot harder than your average mangaka. So if anything, he's probably considering himself as being on the lower end of that average lifespan. Below average, if you will. But I also don't think it's out of the question to state that the Toriyama incident specifically has Oda a bit shaken. Over the last few weeks, I've been reading as many of Oda's old interviews as I can. It's for a video about how One Piece was almost never published, accomplished, and Oda's exceptionally difficult journey to setting sail in Weekly Shonen Jump. As part of this, I have read far too many interviews, and the most repetitive thing that Oda keeps saying is his praise for Dragon Ball and the work of Akira Toriyama in general. Akira Toriyama was Oda's idol. To put it into very crass fictional pirate terminology, Toriyama was Oda's Shanks. There were a lot of other inspirations, but Dragon Ball is the one that Oda always credits as the main force behind his drive to draw manga. And that loss is a life-changing event. It's not just the unfortunate passing of a colleague, it's the passing of the flame that shaped Oda's entire teenage and adult life. I should say that Akira Toriyama was 68 years old, so higher than average from the study, but still 16 years below the Japanese average, which is a tragic continuation of the mangaka lifespan trend. So again, while I don't think there's any immediate worry, this isn't something that a 3-week break is going to solve, and I do think that from now until the end of One Piece, these lengthy breaks are going to become more and more common. In fact, they already have. This is the third 3-week plus hiatus that we've had in the last 2 years, and prior to that, there was only a single lengthy hiatus in the entire history of the series, which was the 1-month break between pre and post timeskip. But the first break we had recently was near the end of Wano, when Oda went to visit the live-action production, and then went to see the premiere of the first episode. The second was last year when he had to take a sudden break for eye surgery, and now we have this one. And in general, I think this is a good thing, even from the most selfish possible perspective, because these breaks just mean that One Piece is going to last longer. But let's continue with the message, because we're not done yet. I want to give proper thought about what One Piece will be all about, like the busy man I am. Over this break in the Egghead arc, I thought for those who were like, I don't remember exactly what the relations between these characters are, we decided to make their flashback stories available to read for free in Japanese on the official shonenjumpplus.com site from April 1st to April 21st. So going back to the first bit of this section, it's implying that Oda is using this time to workshop the future of the story a bit more. Although one of the translations made it sound like Oda was taking this time off so that he could figure out what the actual One Piece treasure was. And whether that's true or not, I wouldn't be upset with taking regular breaks for this reason. One Piece is a brilliant story that constantly compounds itself through a combination of strategic planning and brilliant improvisation. However, now that we're in the final saga, we're getting to the point where one of those needs is going to need to take precedent over the other. There's not a lot of room for improvising anymore. So whatever the plan for the final piece of story is, it needs to be pretty perfectly laid out because again, we don't really have the luxury of improvising and extending the story by another few years. I really wish we did, but we don't. And I can't imagine the amount of pressure that Oda must be under. Because really, can you imagine fumbling the end of a, well, by that time, 30+ year long story? I don't think there ever has been or ever will be a more anticipated ending to a story, and because all eyes are on it, it's going to be so heavily scrutinized and theorized, and potentially even picked apart before it even happens. Which is a problem because one of Oda's key philosophies is to always find new ways to surprise and shock the readers, which has worked pretty well up until now, but I really don't envy his position, because he needs to come up with a final saga capable of outthinking the expectations of tens of millions of people around the world. And for those same amount of people, he needs to come up with an idea of what the One Piece is that none of them are going to anticipate. So under that lens, perhaps some thinking time is a good idea, because in the end, these delays are not going to be remembered by history. When One Piece is a complete product, it's not going to tell people to stop reading halfway through the volume because that was the authentic weekly experience. So we always need to consider the integrity of the end product. But Oda also has more to say here. Furthermore, on Netflix, aside from the One Piece live action, there is also the Monsters anime adaptation from one of my early one-shots. So please give that a watch if you haven't already. And on YouTube, the anime is live streaming non-stop for like 8 days straight on the Anytime One Piece stream, also coming to TikTok on the 23rd of March. With that said, see you after 3 issues on Weekly Shonen Jump. So this is the part of the message where I do start to get a little bit cynical, because over time these messages have become a bit less about communicating directly with the audience and more about plugging whatever the most recent One Piece products are. These Oda messages started out as an annual ritual to be read at Jump Festa every year, but over time Shueisha realized just how powerful they are as marketing tools, and now every time there's a new One Piece release like Film Red or the Ice Skating Show, they've got to tap Oda to promote it through one of these letters, and the cynical part of me doesn't like that Oda can't even announce that he's taking a break without being told to stuff in promotion for 3 to 4 other franchise products. Especially Monsters. Throwing Monsters in there did feel a little bit desperate to me, because I don't think that that project did quite as well as Netflix, Shueisha, and everyone else would have hoped. In case you don't know, there was an animation produced of one of Oda's pre-One Piece one-shots called Monsters, and it came out to, well, it came out. I was going to say that it came out to a mixed reception, but more accurately, it came out and no one really noticed. It had really weird branding, because it is connected to the One Piece universe. There's even a scene with Zoro at the the end, but nothing about the marketing even comes close to suggesting that. You need to know that this is a One Piece project beforehand, which isn't great for reaching that wide audience. That's also why I didn't talk about monsters on this channel, because even if people did watch it, it's not really anything special, which is to be expected because it is one of Oda's earliest stories. It's quite basic, the animation it's okay, and it doesn't really offer anything truly demanding of your 24 minutes of time. But this is as good a spot as ever to give my review of it, I guess, which is that if you've got nothing better to do, then sure, watch Monsters, and that's the review. Oda did also mention the One Piece live action again, really emphasizing that relationship with Netflix alongside Monsters, which is going to be pretty key in the future, because Netflix are also going to be the ones distributing the new series called The One Piece, which is the One Piece anime remake by Wit Studios, which I am incredibly excited for. But while we're on the topic of live action, one of my worries is that that show could also be a source of these increased breaks, because with the sort of failure of live action Avatar, I'm pretty convinced that the secret sauce to making these things work even at a bare minimum level is to have the original creator involved at a core level. And Oda is incredibly committed to the live action, to the point where he's even stated the dream of this show winning an Academy Award. So he's not going to slow down with that. If anything, after the critical success of the show, he has even more drive to put work into it. But I worry about that coming at the cost of the manga. It's a very tricky dynamic. For the One Piece live action to really work, you need Oda as much as possible. But that potentially takes time away from the manga, which is the core thing that we all know and love, and the one thing that I don't think any of us would want compromised. Not even anime-only watchers, because the manga is what their product is based on. So I don't know how it's gonna play out, but I don't think this is anywhere near the last hiatus that One Piece is going to receive, and all I can do is wish Oda a very happy 3 weeks off. And in the meantime, I would be more than happy to feed your fictional pirate addiction. All you need to do is subscribe to this channel for consistent injections of One Piece culture administered directly into your YouTube feed.